See, now the people in Times Square who are sitting in those chairs, which boggle my mind, are wishing they were in our studio right now, having something sweet.
We're going to tease our featured guest for this hour. If we can take a shot of these delicious, delicious treats that are here. You better take a shot before I gobble them all up.
Yeah, seriously, I'm totally diving in.
Saturday. Happy Saturday to each and every one of you. See? That's what we're talking about. We're just teasing that a little bit. But welcome to Your Questions, Your Money here on the Fox Business Network, everybody. I'm Dagan McDowell.
And I'm Tracy Burns. Totally going to dive into what's sitting here. And in this hour, we are taking your business to the next level.
Please pick up the phone and call us, 877-249-9626, or send us an email to yourmoney@foxbusiness.com. This is about getting this economy back on its feet, one business at a time.
Yeah, and doing it without any kind of help from the current administration.
Oh,
do it on your own.
Oh, but it's a-coming. They're thinking about using the TARP money to help out with some SBA loans.
Bad. All right, but first, we have top headlines in business today. And if you're wealthy, watch out. You're going to pay for health care reform. At least according to House Ways and Means Chairman Charlie Rangel, the New York congressman says they plan to raise $550 billion by instituting a surtax on Americans making at least $280,000. And then, of course, it's couples who make at least $350,000. Now, this tax would cover about half the cost of health care reform. The rest would be covered by lower spending on Medicare. Now, most Republicans oppose the idea, as do some centrist Democrats.
That understates what it is.
Oh, God,
there's a higher surtax on people, on families making over $500K, higher on $1 million, and then down the road, that tax is going to go up. It's not going to be 1%. It's going to be 2.
6.5, 1 dozen. What's that silly saying? It doesn't matter. Your taxes are going up across the board.
This is something that small business owners do need to listen to. The Wall Street Journal is reporting that CIT Group is preparing for a possible bankruptcy filing after failing to win a government guarantee to help it borrow money. CIT Group is a major lender to small and mid-sized businesses across the country. It has a $1 billion payment due next month, and it's unclear whether it will meet that. But we're talking about 1 million small and medium-sized businesses that it lends to in this country.
Absolutely. That is huge. And, of course, Wall Street will be keeping an eye on earnings reports due next week from some major tech companies and banks. We got Intel, Google, J.P. Morgan, and Chase, Bank of America, all due to release earnings this week. Tuesday, actually, really big day. That's when everybody starts reporting. And a key indicator of how bad and how deep the recession is hurting businesses, of course, will be what they say. Analysts are expecting steep drops on earnings on a year-over-year basis, but they see a potential improvement over last quarter. The S&P 500 and the Dow dropped for a 4th consecutive week this past week. It is very important that people pay attention to top-line growth. That's what we need to start hearing. We're not thinking it's going to happen, though. All right, well, our next guest is a franchising expert, and he's taking one of New York's favorite frozen treats and heading west. Jim Amos is the CEO of Tasty Delight, and he kindly brought stuff for us, which unfortunately is melting by the minute. We might have to dive in here. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
You have quite a history of taking a brand and just getting it out there.
Well, we've been blessed a couple of times swinging it this bad. I was just thrilled, actually, to hear your comments about small business and perhaps the government's inclination to spend some of these monies on small business. Franchising as an example, Tasty Delight and others, there are some 1,400 franchisors in America generate nearly 1 million small businesses out there and employs both directly and indirectly 20 million plus associates. That means about 15% of the private sector employment, 13% of private sector payroll at $2.3 trillion, about 11% of the private sector total output. So if we look historically at recessionary downturns, it's been small business that has been the promoter of recovery. And I think we need to refocus there today.
Jim, if you're selling franchises, trying to expand the Tasty Delight brand, what about the availability of credit? People need credit because the initial startup costs are, what, $250,000 to more than $400,000. And if they can't get credit, they're not buying your franchise.
Well, there's no question that this particular recessionary downturn has presented that specific challenge. On the other hand, Franchising historically has been a leading market indicator as to when there would be a recessionary downturn because as companies downsize and outsource, what happens is you have many more folks out there who are interested in becoming an entrepreneur. They want to get in business for themselves, and that's what's happening this time. Plus, just the level and quality of investor, whether small or large, is very high right now. Now, there's no question that the tightness of the credit facilities has presented some problems, but what we're finding is people are coming out with dollars. They're going to other family and friends, and they're self-financing.
Jim, stay right there, because it's that time of every hour. 6 minutes past the hour. We want to welcome our listeners on Sirius and XM Radio. I'm Daga McDowell, along with Tracy Burns. This is Your Questions, Your Money here on the Fox Business Network.
And we know you're listening because I've had people email us and say that they're listening on XM and Sirius. So call us, 877-249-9626. You can always email us, yourmoney@foxbusiness.com. Don't do it while you're driving, though.
We have a packed hour ahead and a superstar panel of experts to answer your questions about your business. Ginger Broderick is back with us. She is a CPA and the president of Broderick & Company. And, Ginger, I cannot wait to talk to you about this tax court ruling that just came down with little LLCs and some LLPs and might help out those entrepreneurs and small business owners. Our venture capitalist for this hour is Ned Hill with DFJ Mercury. Good of you to be here, Ned. Down in, are you in the fine state of Texas? Yes, you are, dear sir.
I am. Thank you. It's my pleasure.
And we are more than just super ecstatic to have back. She missed one show, and we missed her dearly. Dani Babb. Dani Babb's here, and John Rutledge are in the house.
In the house. He was not in the house.
And I know they have something to say about franchises.
Yes, they do.
Because you don't like buying a franchise, do you, Dani?
It's not my favorite thing to do, no. I think that people have a passion to go do something, and unless they have a passion to just own someone else's laid-out model, it wouldn't be my first choice for most people.
I always think the most important thing is to figure out what you are and whether you are the person that fits the franchise model. Some people want to get out there and create their own thing from scratch, and if they do anything else, they'll be really disappointed. They can't put their fingerprints on it. Other people just want to get out from under the thumb of the man and have their own place and earn their own income where they can have an incentive. And so I've seen guys in franchises that just love doing it, and I've seen other guys. I would not be a good franchise owner myself, and you wouldn't either.
Right.
But we're not franchise owners.
Right.
So I think that's interesting. But, Jim, with what you were saying, 80% of the taxes paid in this country, income taxes at the top rate, are paid by small businesses.
That's correct.
ATR.org, if you want to see what these idiots in Washington are doing with this surtax.
I was timing you to see how long it took for you to say idiot.
Two-thirds of the income that's going to be taxed by this surtax is small business owners.
Sure is.
Banks have loaned small businesses minus $140 billion since last October. This is crazy. You'll never get anybody back to work if you keep killing the growth engine.
But I don't get it. $250,000 is nothing. And when you're a small business who reports your business on your personal tax return, you are the one, which is a lot of them do. You are the one. I know I'm getting fired up.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
You could get in here about taxes.
Right. I've been a small business expert for many, many years, and I always believe that you really need to be on your own, promoting yourself. And I've been doing it for about 20 years, and it's been really exciting to help celebrate bonuses and such. And the last 10 years has been challenging for a lot of people. But I really believe you really got to watch your financials. You have to be educated in it. You need to work with professionals that really do spend the time so that you know you're at the controls, you have a better idea of what's going on with your business.
You know, but the problem is these days is that the rules are changing by the minute. You don't know how to plan. We talked in the first hour about retirement savings. Well, you know what? You defer your money. You think you're doing the right thing, but meanwhile, your tax rate might be higher in retirement now based on what they're doing. It is a very difficult time to plan, especially for the small business owner.
Right, and even as a professional it is, because the laws change. You have to constantly keep, it's really challenging for us to keep up on all the new tax laws and things because there's so many discussions, revisions. But I always recommend that you have a multiple group of financial advisors, always ask questions, and always have like a financial tune-up throughout the year. You want to make sure that you just have you don't have just one meeting with your accountant or attorney during the year. You want to have at least 2 to 3.
Jim, to switch gears just quickly, because I want to hit the frozen dessert over here before it melts all over the stage, which it is actually
it's better
doing.
to eat it than
Can I
let
taste
it melt.
it? Look, the cake.
In the break, you know the rule: don't ever eat on the air.
I know.
Jim, but I look at Tasty Delight, and I know it having lived in New York City. But then I also see Pinkberry and Red Mango, which are very hot frozen yogurt chains.
Just in Manhattan, right?
So what do you say to sell this in this economic environment when there is intense competition in this area that we didn't see a few years ago?
You know, if a business didn't have competition, it wouldn't be valuable or worthwhile anyway. I think what's important to remember is Tasty Delight is not a new startup like many of these companies. It's 20 years old, and it grew organically in the world's toughest retail environment here in New York City. The other thing I would say relates to the investment thesis that we approached the business with. It had to be a creamy and delicious product that tasted great. But beyond that, the thing that motivated me was the fact that it was a dietary, healthful, and nutritious product. And if we could prove that the science supported it, that it was low in cholesterol, low in carbs, low in sugar, that it was low in lactose, kosher. There's just no other product out there that can compare with what this product
I believe,
is.
though, before your firm bought Tasty Delight, there was a calorie controversy with New York.
There was.
About there was some settlement, right, related to how they were presenting the product.
And that's why, as I mentioned, we brought in some of the top folks in the world on the product innovation side. We had to prove to ourselves that the health claims that were made were supported by the science. And once we got beyond that hurdle, we knew that we had a great product. You go back and look at another company I had, which was Mailboxes, et cetera, that I sold to UPS in 2001. It was the same premise. If you can create a subsegment where you can control the manufacturing and distribution, then you can scale exponentially. And Tasty is just an absolutely great product that fills that bill. I would love to be able to respond to the franchise.
Oh, we will. We will. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to take a quick break. And actually, I'm going to get you, Jim. There's some people on the blogosphere who aren't big fans of yours, so I'm going to get you to respond to them as well. So prepare yourself.
That's quite all right.
Buckle up, everybody. Call us or email us here. Answer your questions. We have answers to your questions about your business, growing it. Also, which businesses franchise well? I want Jim to answer that when we come back from a break. But give him the phone number.
Because franchises do work for some people.
Not owning them. How about if you have a business, should you franchise it? That's the question I want Jim to answer. But take us to break, Tracy.
877-249-9626. You can always email us yourmoney@foxbusiness.com. We're here Saturday having a good time, so get in touch. Hey, welcome back. Happy Saturday. Your questions, your money. We are having so much fun. We're talking about being an entrepreneur, starting your own business, taking your business to the next level, franchising a business. And we have Jim Amos here with us, CEO of Tasty Delight. Actually, I tasted it in the break, as you're not supposed to taste on air, and it was fabulous. All right, but now I have to ask.
Don't eat on camera, Tracy.
I know, but you know, good product. You got to taste it. We were just talking about how it is not, franchising is not a favorite of some people. You have a product, you want to do it, and I suppose a lot of it has to do with the fact that there are things you have to follow. The place has to look a certain way. I think of a TGI Fridays where I feel like everyone I walk into, there's the same picture in the same spot in every restaurant around the country, right? But you've done franchises. You mentioned Mailboxes. You've also done I Can't Believe It's Not Yogurt.
Right.
I can't believe it's yogurt.
That's correct.
I can't believe it's yogurt. And I was thinking that in college, we were TCBY fans. But this stuff's been around forever.
Long time.
Who's the right person to sell a franchise to?
Well, the target, these were such great comments that were made a while ago, because I think the reality is most folks do not understand the breadth and depth of franchising, and that includes the target entrepreneurs. The reality is that the real entrepreneur and this will offend some folks, but the real entrepreneur often starts the franchises. And many people that come into it are people that, in fact, are looking for a workable plan where they don't have to invent the wheel. But even with that being said, I've been around the business for 30 years, and I've seen franchisees grow larger than the franchisor and become public entities on their own. So it just seems to me that there's quite a scope for entrepreneurism. Every single viable new product, and I'm talking those like the Big Mac and others that have had such an impact in the marketplace, have come from franchisees. They didn't get created in some puzzle palace by a corporate donk somewhere. They came from the people that were closest to the line, and these are the people that are serving the consumer, and no one's closer to the consumer than the franchisee. That's why I go back to independent businesses. These people, whether they start these businesses or are franchisees, are the real heroes of our economic society. And those are the ones that we should be supporting. Those are the ones that we should be investing in. And franchising, obviously, is a very large part of that.
Do you tell your franchisees, when, during the training process and so on, that they're not the real entrepreneurs in the process? Because we have a lot of people that call in that they are entrepreneurs and they want to be part of a franchise because they want the business model laid out for them.
Right.
But they are genuine entrepreneurs at heart, and they're going to take, as you said, that franchise and run with it. So, I mean, that's not something that most franchisors would tell their franchise. Is that part
That's why I said I think some folks would be offended by the comment. But you know what you have to do? You have to step back and look for some type of definitional response to what entrepreneur is. And if you are an entrepreneur and yet you have less money to invest in very difficult, constraining economic times, as an example, like we have today, and you'd like to have a larger percentage of opportunity to succeed, then business format franchising is for you. Because if you pick an organization that's been around for many, many, many years and has thousands of units on the ground, they have a proven track record of success. So I think there's enough entrepreneurial, compelling motivation for almost anyone. The beauty of franchising is that whatever size your dream is, it can meet that need that you have.
But Jim, if you read the internet, and not just with you, but you read about a lot of people who own franchises, who've been burned, and I mean by multiple chains, and the tales are shaking. And a lot of, and this is in the blogosphere and on the internet, but much has been, you read a lot about you, that you have a history of litigation, and you're the enemy of franchisees, and I just wanted to get your response to that.
Well, my response is my entire life, over 30 years, I've put over 10,000 franchisees into business, or supported them or been responsible for them, and far and away the majority of them are successful and in business today. Part of our current culture is that we have developed a sense of victimization, and that is to say, people that go into business for themselves, whether they're entrepreneurs or whether are not, franchisees are not, where did we finally slip across the line where success was a guarantee and not an opportunity? When you're generating $2.3 trillion in business and you have 1 million locations out there, won't some fail? You know, and I would just think the question is begged, wouldn't it seem possible that sometimes that might be an operator deficiency and not somebody else's fault?
But does that lead to lawsuits, though, when
well, sure
you sell
it does.
businesses?
Don't you think it's funny?
We're such a litigious society. We sue over everything.
Well, that's the point.
Yeah.
That is precisely the point. I sold mailboxes, et cetera, to UPS 9 years ago. I'm still in litigation over it. 9 years later. That should speak to itself, it seems to me.
More on opportunity when we come back.
Perfect.
Break.
Thanks.
Okay. I wanted to ask you, though, because, again, we're answering, it's about your questions and tough questions here on Fox Business Network. Take us to break, girl.
We'll be right back.
Up next, a viewer wants to know which is better for her small business, a credit union or a traditional bank if she's looking for a loan. The credit unions want to loan you money. We'll tell you how much when we come back.
Happy Saturday. Welcome to Your Questions, Your Money. I'm here with Dagan McDowell. We're hanging out. We are talking entrepreneurism, doing something, starting something on your own, not relying on the government for help. I love that. And we have fabulous people here to help answer your questions. And we're going to jump right to the phone right now. Gil is on the phone from Pennsylvania. Hey, Gil, what's up?
Oh, hi. My question is, I'd like to buy a franchise from a national tutoring company, but their collateral requirements are pretty high. $250,000 net worth and $50,000 of that in cash. So do you have any suggestions how I could go about getting partners or financing for it?
Jim, you're grinning.
Oh, no,
You're the franchise man.
Obviously, the question is a great question. I think the reality is, again, if you look at the breadth of industries, there are 83 or 84 industries at franchise. You'll find some with such a low, almost next to nothing cost of entry up to hotels in the millions and millions of dollars. So I think if your target is education, you might want to look around to alternative franchisors that might either have a lower cost of entry or what you're doing is entering the most difficult part of funding in business, not just franchising, and that's the angel arena, from $0 to $5 million. It's just the toughest money to acquire today. And VCs are beginning to think about playing in that market as well as private equity today. But as they attempt to reinvent themselves in this current economic environment. But those are difficult dollars to raise. I agree with you.
Jim,
I want Danny again with money raising ideas. And
Well, yeah, I mean the $250,000 in net worth, Gil. I think is that mostly the holdup or is it the cash?
Both.
It's both. I mean, really, your only other option is either to raise it, like you're saying, through a partnership. You could go to the SBA, but it's tough to get loans today. There's the National Association of Small Business Investment Companies, which is at NASBIC, NASBIC.org. Which has a list of some community banks and some other banks that are actually lending for. There's a franchise group in there, so you might want to check that out if you're really stuck on this particular franchise. But, you know, I would go through all of the reasons you want this particular business, see if there's something else that aligns that maybe has a lower point of entry. And if not, then continue to raise the capital.
I want to say something to us.
Oh, please.
The one thing I recommend for someone when they're starting in the business and they're new in entrepreneurship is start on a smaller level, because so many people make a lot of mistakes in the first 3 to 5 years of business. And if you're investing $250,000, I mean, you could really go bankrupt very easily. So, give yourself some time to learn how to run a business.
Address, like, what would be the reason? Because my initial reaction, and I bet it was John's too, is, well, if you want to go into this business, hang a shingle, do it yourself. Do it for cheaper, undercut the franchisee. You could do it at home for cheaper. I mean, you could do it in the public library. I could think of 100 places where I could tutor somebody. What would be the benefit to buying a franchise?
Well, the benefits are enormous, as was just stated. If you have a proven track record in the marketplace, that's a very different experience than starting a business from scratch and reinventing every wheel.
I have a client that purchased a Pilates studio, and it was the big name, and it was the training, the techniques and such, and they did really, really well. But it was very costly over a period of time to be paying out 10% for franchise fees.
Ginger is saying that if you're new to it, don't risk that money initially.
Not that much.
Right.
But then how do you buy the franchise?
Well, you don't. She's
find
saying
something
you start
smaller,
on your own and smaller.
Because the thing is that most business owners are out within 3 to 5 years. You want to make sure you have the personality to persevere through the tough times.
John, I want you to get John,
jump in here on this, because again, that's where my
Hey, how you doing, guys?
I'll tutor you in the park this weekend for 25% of the price of what the franchises are showing.
Absolutely. Basically, our philosophy is that people should get their butt off the couch and do something.
Right.
And I don't really care. Today's the best time in the world to start a small business because you can't go back and do it last year now. I mean, get going at it right now. And if you don't have any cash, and if you can't raise any cash, then go out in the park and try and make the first $10. Sometimes it's worth it to make a deal with somebody to partner up. That is when that partnership can give you added value. Now, typically in a franchise situation, that's because there's a brand, and when you hang the sign out and it's an IHOP sign, the parking lot fills up. That's a franchise that I can see is worth doing.
Absolutely.
And that's also a situation, though, where you need to be a certain personality to do that well and to do it for a long time well. And if you are that personality, that's a great thing for you. If you're not, you're better off doing the guerrilla fighting out in the... Not everybody's meant to be a partner in business with someone else. It's tough to be a partner, but it can be very, very profitable for the right people.
We need to take a
Can I jump in here?
Yes, absolutely. Go right ahead.
Yeah, echoing some thoughts, but maybe for another rationale. You know, the idea of going out starting small, not necessarily putting as much capital at risk, part of what you're doing is building your own experience set. And, you know, investors, whether they're venture capitalists or perhaps even banks or angel investors, a big part of what they're betting on are the people that are involved in running the business. And if you can point to some demonstrated success, that's a big feather in your cap. So building some of that experience on your own dime at a much smaller risk level can really pay dividends the next time out, whether you want to do it as a franchise or whether you want to do it on your own but at a larger level.
Ned, don't move a muscle, because coming up, the pitch. Ned's going to field it. You'll wonder how you survived without it. This is the Fox Business Network, the network of opportunity. And we'll be right back.
It's my favorite graphic.
Time for the pitch. Inside your home, there may be a hidden danger lurking. But fear not. Our next two guests think that they have the answer to that threat. For today's pitch, Frank Aurelia is here and Alex Jerem to get their chance to make it big with their product, which they say eliminates a big danger in your bathtub or spa tub. And guys, it's great of you to be here.
Thank you for having us.
Frank and Alex, and you're pitching. So Ned, you're sitting in Texas, listen up, and just feel free to jump in and ask questions and give them an honest assessment. But go ahead, guys. Alex, you're up.
Hey, Ned, thank you for being on the show with us. We invented this product that basically gets the bacteria out of jetted tubs. The need for it is that when you let the water out of your bathtub, that the water that's left in the jet system gets really, it's a breeding ground for bacteria, and it gets really clogged up. In the most extreme cases, black stuff can spew out when you use your tub when you haven't used it in a while. The problem with why the industry hasn't addressed getting it out, and basically what they're telling you is you had to fill the tub, put in bleach or vinegar or whatever, and run it 20, 30 minutes, and then drain the tub, do it again for a rinse process, and basically it was taking an hour and a half and 100 gallons to clean your jacuzzi tub. With our system here...
And this is the prototype, right?
This is a prototype, right. This is a prototype, and it's not, you know, ready to get on a tub. But this one right here is basically what you do, is you put this on the intake, and it fools the tub into thinking that it's full. So we no longer have to fill the entire tub. So this fills up. This goes on the faucet, and we get fresh water into the system. And then we have a hole here to put in our detergent, so it cleans it.
And you've developed a working prototype. Have you finally gotten it down to where it works on a variety of tubs?
That's right. That's right. Our problem has been that the tubs, the intakes are contoured and have many different shapes. So it was hard when we get one that would work on a tub, and then we'd find other tubs that it didn't work on. This one here works on 99% of all the tubs.
And so why the bacteria? Because of the jets? Or because of the product that people use in the jets? I mean, if I don't use product in my spa, do I need this?
Yes, you absolutely do. All the jetted tubs are at risk. But one of the reasons that a bathtub is more at risk is because of the exfoliation of the bath process. So you have hair, you have skin.
Ned, go ahead and ask them what you want to know if they're pitching to you as the VC.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thanks, Frank and Alex. This is a big part of what I love about what I do. Innovative ideas, enthusiastic entrepreneurs, as we've said, small business and entrepreneurism is really a foundational element of our country. So congrats on what you've been able to get accomplished to date. I really put sort of my thoughts and comments into a couple of different buckets. One is knowing your market and knowing your business, and that means obviously knowing it cold, knowing it certainly better than the person across the table when you're talking fundraising, and knowing yourselves as part of that as well. And then the other part is knowing your fundraising audience, you know, who it is you're talking to. So on the market size, and I've had the benefit, I went to your website, I looked through a quick synopsis, so I have a little bit more benefit more than what you've talked about here. But one of the keys really is understanding your market, the market needs, and the market size. Have you guys done any sort of analysis to try to put together numbers behind how big your market is truly, and what kind of market acceptance you think you'll have?
Absolutely. There are roughly 25 million jetted tubs in the United States. Jacuzzi invented the jetted tub about 40 years ago, and roughly 1 million tubs or so sell just in the U.S. alone on an annual basis. So there is a hefty market out there.
Yeah, and what I didn't know is what kind of price point you were contemplating, and then if you just do the math, what that means in terms of an addressable market on an annual basis.
Yep. Price point, as of right now, we're looking at about $39.95. That'll depend on manufacturing costs and what our final price ends up being.
Right. So the other piece then, so if you do that math, that's important. And the reason that that's important is it starts to address who your potential fundraising sources are. Venture capitalists as a whole, are looking for incredibly large or very high growth markets, whereas some of your other sources of capital, such as angels, may be more comfortable with what I would call more niche markets that are smaller, but again, have lots of opportunity. So some things to think about there. On the distribution side, what are your thoughts on distribution, direct versus maybe partnering with OEM manufacturers of the tubs versus going with the distributors who are probably the installers and the folks who actually have personal contact with the customers?
We want to start distribution really with an infomercial because we think it's an education. Well, first of all, it's perfect product for an infomercial. But second of all, we want to really educate the consumers. We feel that only about 20 to 30% of the jetted tub people who own them know that this is a problem. So I think the people that know it's a problem, they're clamoring, waiting for our product. But I think the real opportunity is in educating the rest of the market.
Ned?
Yeah, data point of one, I'll point out, I mentioned it to my wife, and she was an enthusiastic potential buyer. So at least you won one over.
Thank you.
I guess I would also say that in general, evangelizing a market can be very difficult. It can be expensive. You're trying to convince people to buy something that they haven't contemplated buying in the past. So I'll call it a yellow flag as an investor, that pops up again versus something that would be a little bit easier to convince customers to buy. What alternative strategies would be to partner up with the folks who actually have contact with the customer or the OEMs, essentially to package it in. When you buy a jetted tub, you get this device to clean along with it. So something to think about in terms of how you're trying to penetrate the market and perhaps do it more cost effectively. As an investor, one of the other keys that we're looking for is how efficiently are you going to use your capital. And I'm certainly no infomercial specialist, but my initial reaction is that's potentially a fairly expensive way to proceed. And I did notice of the capital you were contemplating, a significant portion went to that PR and marketing side.
Because you guys want $2 million. That was the initial amount you wanted to raise. Ned, what would you tell them in terms of how low should they get that number and make it easier to raise money?
Yeah, well, a lot of it, of course, depends upon who they end up talking to raise it. In many ways, it's interesting. This is not a traditional business that venture capitalists would jump into. But if it were, you run the risk with some VCs of $2 million being too low, and for others, it might be the right sweet spot. But it really is a pretty decent amount. I think Jim mentioned it earlier for angel investors. The other benefit with angels is, as I mentioned, they may be more inclined to go with a market opportunity that was a bit more niche-y. And by the way, they might be more inclined to go with an investment that doesn't have an obvious exit, meaning a sale of the company, but are much more content to take a portion of the profits as this company reaches some cash flow positive status. So what I would really say about the $2 million is what you would need to do with me or any investor is much more clearly define how that money is going to be spent and the tangible benefits you're going to be able to achieve with that money. Because, again, my initial reaction was not so much that $2 million is too much or too little, but how that $2 million was going to be spent.
Give them a quick verdict. Yeah.
Yeah. So my quick verdict is always need more data. That said, I think for the right investor, and it's probably an individual or sets of individuals who, by the way, probably know the consumer product space very well, perhaps have an in with home construction or home product sales that can really add a lot more value than just the dollars. I think it could be a great fit for them. I'm going on the assumption that the product works or will work, and then it just comes down to the ability of management to execute.
Jetted tubs are actually now the #2 free giveaway from home builders today. So one thing that you might want to do is take this product, if you have, once you have some marketing money, and actually give it away free to the home builders or for a very low cost, so that the homeowner gets it. Then they're going to start using it to all the neighbors, and hopefully it'll become part of their routine. But one of the things that caught my attention, I have one in my home, and I know that the health risks exist because of the spas from pedicures. They have all sorts of issues, so that may be an area for expansion. I'm sure you've considered. And then having the numbers to support the health risks are the things that stand out to
That's
my
why I think the infomercial is such a great idea, because I didn't know. I didn't even think about cleaning that thing.
I know anybody who's gotten the black sludge out of a tub that you got into. It's a very... Anybody who's experienced it would certainly buy the product. Right. John, you want to weigh in here?
Yeah, this is an infomercial product. It's somewhere between a Guthrie Renker and the Ron Popeil of the word is the guy who's going to know how to sell this.
Either or.
The OEM guys are going to be a problem because they're not going to want to advertise that their tubs will make you sick. Right. So you won't get a lot of support there, but you will in the marketplace. And what I would do is I'd go home today, I'd get on Twitter, and I would start the rumor that this black sludge is what killed Michael Jackson.
Or it makes your toes fall off or something.
But really, you can do an infomercial for $100 grand.
Think of something worse than that.
If you can find a way to contract manufacture this and almost give away the product and then sell the cleaning solution forever, I think you'll find a saleable business out of it.
Alex and Frank, some final words?
We certainly believe the product's phenomenal. We think it makes cleaning jetted tubs a lot easier and people healthier. So go out and buy it.
Do you guys have day jobs? Do you have day jobs?
Yes. Yeah,
what do you do?
I'm actually a process server in Colorado.
Really? So you manufacture it in Colorado?
Yeah. Well, right now we're in the prototype phase, so we're still shopping our manufacturers, but yes.
So, but you're based in Colorado?
I'm out of Jersey and primarily in telecommunications.
Guys, best of luck.
Excellent. And this is your weekend hobby.
What's your website?
www.spa-rx.com.
Excellent.
Guys, best of luck.
Good job.
Well done.
Please keep us posted.
Yeah, great job, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Again, this is the American spirit, alive and well. Busting you know what, at night,
and
right?
You guys are working across the
cable.
country. I think it's great.
Thinking of another B word.
I think it's amazing.
Frank Aurelia and Alex Durham, thank you so much.
Thank you guys so much.
You.
Appreciate the opportunity.
You can sit right there, but don't you guys sit right there, whether you're in your car, at home. Remember, if you have an idea that you want to pitch to a venture capitalist, you can let us know. The opportunity of a lifetime, tell us about it. The email address, Tracy and I are here every week, yourmoney@foxbusiness.com. Please send us the ideas. We read each and every one of them. Meantime, get on the horn, call us. We're going to do a lightning round of phone calls when we come back.
Welcome back. I keep thinking about the ick in my tub now.
Do you have a jet tub?
Yeah. They don't make homes anymore without them. Actually, that's partially why the product could be.
It could be a huge success. Absolutely.
Because they do not build a home these days without, as you said,
it's the big freebie.
Yeah, not after last week. Did you hear about Michael Jackson?
No, don't say that.
Oh, okay.
But you know what? We will let you chime in. We have an email. Catherine has written in. Would our business be better off banking with a credit union rather than a bank? My husband and I have a small consulting company grossing about $300,000 per year. Dani Babb?
Usually, yes. I would just strictly compare the numbers, rate, term, amount that you need. But generally, yes, in terms of personal attention, making sure that if you have some tough times, you have someone to contact, maybe pick up the phone and actually talk with. So in general, yes, but not always. Just depends on rate.
So credit union over a bank
Depending upon rates and terms and so on, yeah. I mean, by the numbers.
About 1/3 of credit unions make small business loans, so it's not all of them, but they're out there.
Absolutely, and community banks too.
But it's really down to the numbers at the end of the day.
I think
mean, you
so.
got to just
and
check
service.
Yeah, I mean, it needs to be about your business.
Yeah, because that's
It's easy. You know, an 18-year-old boy, ask him, should he get romance from a blonde or a brunette? The answer is yes. I mean, you know, get it from wherever you can get the money.
Exactly.
You're probably more likely to get it from the credit union or from a banker in your town who knows you.
Well, that's
not from a big bank.
My little division of TD Bank knows me very well.
Absolutely.
Pain in the neck. I show up all the
But
time.
you can dial both phone numbers and you can ask them both. So don't sit home and only call one guy. Get off the couch and
search
go
on the internet too.
Right.
Yeah.
Findacreditunion.com is the website. Findacreditunion.com. So get it out of your head that you can't use a credit union if you aren't.
Right.
One isn't available through your wallet.
All right, let's take another email. Renee writes, I was looking into some grants to help with my new small business. How does a person go about finding some of those? Danny.
You go to my website where I have about 15 places listed, which is drdanibabb.com under the forums. But here's some quick ones. mdba.gov, grants.gov, finance.gov/grants. bizviz.gov/grants, too.
Danny's website is like an encyclopedia of small business.
Ned, you're smiling. Why are you smiling?
No, I just think that's a great way to get some funding, non-dilutive, meaning they don't take ownership for the money that you're getting. And every small business owner should try to tap that resource. Obviously, be careful with the time commitment required to get it. And unfortunately, you can't count on it. But if you've got time and you can be patient and you've got energy, go for it.
Oh, quick fact, too. 94% since January of grants have actually increased the amount that they have available to them. 94% of them. So there's more money today than there was last year.
I have people that are establishing tax-exempt nonprofit organizations and to raise money for various types of charities. And they're applying for grants through different private foundations. There's a lot of them that are out there, and it's free money.
Ginger, while you're talking, there was a major tax court ruling recently, right? About allowing you to write off losses, use your losses to offset your income. These are for LLPs and LLCs, limited liability partnerships, LLCs. And the IRS has fought this for a long time, but it looks like this ruling might stick. I just wanted you, because I know Danny, I'm sure everybody's up on it. I know the tax dork over here is. But I wanted you to fill people in on that, because this really jumped out at me when I saw it.
Yeah. There's so many different issues, you know, dealing with tax losses. I'm a tax accountant that tries to stay away from them because there's all different types of rules and regulations and changes, and you don't want to really misuse a lot of your money. So you really have to be careful on what the plan is and different issues. The tax laws go through a lot of different revisions and timings and things, and it's hard for us to even keep up with everything that's, you know, being said and done. And
is this going to stick, though, you think, this current ruling?
Well, it's hard to change. You know, it's hard to say because there's so many different changes. I mean, you have to be careful on what type of corporate tax structure you're set up with and what the long term is, because they do change the rules.
So what's the ruling? Let's tell the people what the ruling is.
Yeah, go ahead. That it's going to, basically, they're just allowing losses now going forward for LLPs and LLCs. Right. So they're just taking, it's another notch on the small business. Another knock, I should say.
You can deduct losses against your salary and income if you're involved in a variety of businesses. They can actually go to the Wall Street Journal website. I will put it on our website. It gives a more thorough explanation of what we're talking about. You know what I'm talking about. It was a major ruling.
Yeah, I believe that one of the exemptions is actually going to be real estate LLCs, which are the ones that have some of the biggest losses right now. But I mean, there's some entrepreneurs it could actually help, and it may turn the tides in terms of becoming an LLC versus a sole proprietor.
Absolutely, but I'm not sure it's going to stick. It's not final yet.
The IRS can appeal it.
Exactly. The current estimate of the budget deficit that Obama just released, 10 years, is $9.4 trillion. They're going to be crawling up every pant leg they can to find every dollar they can, and they're going to be more and more and more aggressive doing it.
And they put pressure on the IRS to raise revenue.
Absolutely.
So that's why we're seeing this. But you're right. That's why I'm not sure it's even, you know, we got to worry too much yet, because the IRS will appeal this. And for the sake of small businesses, I hope they do.
And speaking of small businesses, it was Nebraska farmers who pursued this case because they wanted to deduct losses from their chicken and pig operations. So there are entrepreneurs everywhere in every form. Just wanted to give them a shout
every
out.
deduction
Coming from farm country.
counts.
Right.
And you take them away, you can clobber a business.
The government has been doing that a lot over the long period of time, so try not to have losses. That's my goal.
We got to take a quick break, but in the next hour, again, more answers to your questions about running, growing, making your business super successful. 877-249-9626.
And starting Monday, all the president's czars. Oh, we are on a czar kick here at Fox. A look at the unusual move for the White House to name over 30 czars. This is 4 p.m. on Bulls and Bears. And today on Huckabee, he's doing a little dancing with the czars. Fabulous stuff. Check it out. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Your Questions, Your Money. Did I scare you? If you're falling asleep, you better wake up. No, it's not. It's not howdy time, but it is time for an email.
All right, we got Ron writing in. What are your thoughts on starting a pawn shop in Tennessee or anywhere for that matter, and the money needed to do this? Well, I suppose, John, it's an economy that would welcome a pawn shop. People are trying to raise money.
Oh, a pawn shop. I thought you said porn shop.
No.
That
would raise money, too.
Absolutely.
That might raise more money.
Your head out of the bathroom.
This is a market where people are really short on cash. Pawn shops are great business right now. If you have one, you're making a lot of money. It's not bad to get in. It's a good thing to get in business with, but it's a business where I'm not sure you want to be a startup right now, not quite knowing what you're doing.
I have a client who is a pawn shop, and we started from the very beginning. He had a three-page business plan, and it grew so well. What he didn't realize is how well it was going to grow. And
working capital.
And within 6 months, we had to invest over $30,000 in computer software that was specialized for that industry. Yeah.
It actually grew. Tell the person who emailed, though, what do they need to know about starting a pawn shop right from the get-go, Ginger?
Well, with our situation was that there's state laws determining how much you can charge, what the interest rate is, the turnover. We had this particular client went to the state to lobby changes so that the investment wasn't over a period of just 6 months, but we wanted to have a turnover in our money a lot sooner, so we changed the loan laws from 6 months to 4 months, and we worked to change the rates, the interest, the surcharges, those kind of things. But with all the detail and the handling, we really needed to keep it tracked on a computer, and a small PC wasn't sufficient enough. And that $25,000, $30,000 investment with the computer hardware and software was very trying for the company. But we got investors, and what happened, it grew too well. And it grew too fast, and we needed to have other people to come in and help finance it for the loaning of the money.
You're grinning.
No, I just think that when one contemplates whether they're going to get into any kind of business, there are challenges associated with growth.
Well, you're not going to see it until you're in it.
As well as lack of growth. So, I mean, they're just different kinds of things.
You want to make sure that you have advisors that have experience in the industry.
Pawn shops have changed structurally because now you have a secondary market where you can sell the inventory through eBay. Before you didn't. Pawn shop is really a lender. So you need capital to do it.
Also, you know what, Ron, check out a couple of things. People who buy from pawn shops and who give their money to pawn shops often buy from consignment stores and thrift shops. So check out that local market and find out how those business owners are doing, and if their business has been making up. If it has, I say go for it.
Ned, final word from you. You got about 15 seconds.
Yeah, I think the last comment is most relevant for me, which is know your market. I mean, my assumption is there are other pawn shops in that area. If there are, how are you going to differentiate yourself? Is it because of a good location or some other differentiation that will help you be successful even in a more competitive market?
Ned Hill of DFJ Mercury, thank you so much, dear sir. Great to see you. Please come
pleasure.
back. Jim Amos, a big thanks to you from Tasty Delight, the CEO there. Ginger Broderick.
Thank you.
Again, great advice. You know who's hanging around? John and Danny. They're not going anywhere. We've got another hour of your questions and answers to those questions and an incredible entrepreneur when we come back. A big howdy
Come on, do it.
No, I'll do it at 1:30.
What the heck are you waiting for?
I don't want to scare
We
our
usually
guests.
have 2 at least by now.
I don't want to scare the guests.
He's fine. He's a grown man.
I'm Dagan McDowell, first and foremost. And first and foremost, it's Tracy Birds. We want to hear from you. We're talking about bringing this economy back to life and then some, all by ourselves, by starting businesses, growing the ones that you're already running.
I love this because it's all about that entrepreneurial spirit that's in you. And then John Rutledge says it's your what? Blue flame?
Yeah,
No,
blue
blue
flame.
Come on, tell them about the blue flame. All right, so put down that cup of coffee and call us. 877-249-9626. You can always email us your money at foxbusiness.com. Well, our next guest is a girl's best friend. Dr. Nicholas Percone is a board-certified clinical and research dermatologist, very successful line of cosmetics, got 1 billion books, which are all pretty much here, loads of products. We thank you so much for joining us. But
We should
beyond
call them cosmeceuticals. That's the term.
That's the term.
Dr. Perricone. Yes. It's more like pharmaceuticals for your face without a prescription.
But before we get to the products and all that, I mean, I think the story is really interesting, how you were with Yale, then you weren't, and then all of a sudden you just had this thing in you to get something out there and create basically your own small business. I mean, medical school aside, you were an entrepreneur. Can you just explain to people how that whole thing started?
Well, it actually starts in medical school. We were studying something called histopathology, looking under the microscope at various disease processes, looking specifically at a cancer called squamous cell carcinoma. And I noticed there was inflammation, microscopic inflammation around the cancer. And the same thing when we studied atherosclerosis in the arteries, or looking at the pancreas and diabetes, and looking at all disease processes, there was inflammation. So I asked my professors a question: is it possible that inflammation could be mediating this disease process somehow? And the answer was no, that's just the immune system, it's being activated. And I thought that was an unusual answer because many times cancer bypasses the immune system. When I started studying dermatology, the same thing. We looked under the microscope at disease processes, and I noticed when I looked at aged skin, it had inflammation present, and the younger skin didn't have inflammation. So I put together what I call the aging, disease, inflammation theory, and started working on that. I was really convinced that inflammation was at the basis of all age-related diseases as well as wrinkles. So the idea was, if that was the problem, then what would be a proper intervention? And of course, an anti-inflammatory would come to mind, but anti-inflammatories are, prescription ones are iffy. So I understood nutrition. I'm a nutritionist as well as a physician, and know that all antioxidants act as natural anti-inflammatories. So the question was, could we use antioxidants topically to turn off inflammation and see clinical improvement of the skin? And even more important than that, what if we looked at systemic inflammation? How can we reduce that? And I found out that the biggest way to reduce inflammation is change our diet. So I created what I call the anti-inflammatory diet. So I looked at 3 tiers of treatment here. We have anti-inflammatory diet as the first and most important aspect of this. Second level is taking basically capsules or antioxidants orally that have anti-inflammatory activity. Somewhat controversial. Mainstream medicine said we don't need vitamins or antioxidants. Right. Of course, third level, I'm a dermatologist. Most important thing is how we look, putting topical anti-inflammatories directly on skin. Now that led to me applying for various patents for intellectual property. And so my first patent was actually issued while I was still a resident in dermatology at Henry Ford Hospital. After leaving Henry Ford, I started my own practice and became clinical instructor at Yale School of Medicine, Department of Dermatology, continued my research, looking at various aspects. It evolved to several dozen patents. And so I looked at this and said, well, this is important. I did lots of clinical studies. So I thought I would approach industry and basically license the technology, because I thought industry would be very interested in something that truly works, because it was a huge portion of the industry. In fact, we always heard about hope in a jar. The cosmetics, that's your hope. I called it hopeless in a jar because there was nothing in there except oil and water and perfume. So looking at that, I presented to virtually every large company around the world over a period of about 8 to 10 years. Absolutely no interest. And then finally, some scientist took mercy upon me and said, come here, son, let me explain how this works. We're making a lot of money. We don't have to do all these active ingredients that may have a downside. So I think you're wasting your time. So I went back, I was pretty discouraged, and I had all this intellectual property, all these patents invested. Basically, I had no retirement money, I had no savings. It was all invested in my research and on the intellectual property. I said, what am I going to do? Well, I said I could start my own business. I didn't want to do that. I'm a physician, didn't know much about business. And I was told the competition's enormous. You can't go up against the big companies. But I went ahead and started the company. But I had the IP, I had the research. It was a 20-year process. It didn't happen overnight. And it changed the industry because I went out with something that truly based on science and something that works. And the response was tremendous. But there was a whole order of things. Writing a book that became #1 New York Times bestseller, appearing on television, having my own public television special, and all this generated interest in the science. And the interesting thing is, this is a perfect time to introduce science because the baby boomers are driving the company. Baby boomers are amazing. They have the education, they have the motivation, and they have the financial ability to do anything they want. But they want to know the story. They want to know, does this work and how does it work? So this is the first time this is information-based.
And Dr. Perricone, you're going to be with us the whole hour, but I want people to call and talk to you, even if they're not doctors, but they can learn from your lessons and your perseverance and how you built this vast, vast brand. But right now, it's 6 minutes after the hour and time to welcome our radio listeners on Sirius and XM. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Dagan McDowell, along with Tracy Burns.
And if you have a question about starting your own business or taking your business to the next level, we're here. Email us, yourmoney@foxbusiness.com. You can always call us, 877-249-9626.
We have an incredible number of people here, incredible people, period. Dr. Nicholas Perricone, you were hearing from him just a few minutes ago. And, of course, you know his face, you know his books, you know his products. Also joining us is Spencer Tall, Managing Director of Legis Capital. And he's going to update us on a pitch that happened a few weeks ago, and we're excited for him to be here the whole hour as well. And John Rutledge and, of course, Dani Babb are sticking around as well to answer all of your questions. But, Dr. Perricone, one thing, when you decided to go into to start your own business, what was you knew that you had to build a brand and get the word out. Did you start with the book? Was that while you were, because you knew that was that was the best way to connect with your audience?
Actually, I started the company about a year before the book was released, and it was kind of another unusual circumstance. I was asked to speak at a conference in Atlanta about the future of cosmetics and skincare. And I gave my lecture, and I had some little lab samples of some topicals I brought with me. There wasn't a brand. It was just my research. And at that conference were the buyers from Nordstrom department stores. And after I gave my lecture, I went to the back of the room. They kind of rushed over, and they said, oh, let me look at this stuff. And they took all the samples, and they said, and they looked at it, and they called me and said, we have to have your brand. I said, I don't have a brand. They said, well, get it together. Let's do it. So I sat down. I had my formulations. I had my clinical studies. I created my own packaging, looked at it.
You did?
Yes, I did.
All because Nordstrom's pushed you to.
Well, this was my opportunity. I knew that after my 10 years of looking at the industry, no one was going to license the product. So they said, this is your opportunity. You want to do this. So I did. I started the one store in Atlanta, Perimeter Mall, and we sent the products out, and they were well received. They were different. They were not usual cosmetics. They weren't this beautiful, elegant cream that smelled perfect, but they were loaded with topical anti-inflammatories. Maybe didn't smell as good as they should, but they truly had efficacy that you can see very quickly.
So was Nordstrom's then your jumping off point, pretty much?
Well, it started that way. We went from one store to 5 and then to 7 stores. But what really drove the success of this, once again, is I wrote a book on topical anti-inflammatories for treatment of photo damage, and I went on and submitted the book. I thought this would be a book maybe for other dermatologists. And a book agent by the name of Ann Solaro said, this is really interesting. I said, you've got to be kidding me. This is interesting? She said, yeah, this is going to sell. And they said, we're going to change the name. I said, to what? They said, the Wrinkle Cure. I said, well, that's kind of, I was a little leery about that. I mean, I'm a scientist. And went out there, and my first appearance was on Good Morning America. And the book talks about the anti-inflammatory diet as being key. And in 3 days, if you reduce inflammation inside of you, it will change your skin, because the skin's a perfect barometer of how we're doing inside. And it changes your skin so much that you can see a difference in 3 days, a difference that's photographable. You can walk in a room, people say, what have you done? Have you been on vacation? You're absolutely radiant. So I went on Good Morning America on a Tuesday and laid out the diet, and they chose 3 people from ABC, and they sequestered them so they couldn't cheat. And I laid out the diet and basically said, these are anti-inflammatory foods, salmon and salads and blueberries. And Diane Sawyer said, I cannot really believe that this is going to make a difference in 3 days. We came back on a Friday. We did it in Bryant Park. And Diane arrives, and she gets out of her car and goes to the makeup trailer. And she looks across the park at the 3 subjects and said, oh, my God, I could see a difference from here. And I was really planning on, like, really cutting you up today, Dr. Perricone, because I thought it was impossible. So the women came on, And they talked about it. They said, yeah, we did the salmon, and we did the salad, we did the blueberries. It's kind of narrow. And they joked a little bit. They think they're growing gills and all of those usual jokes. They did the before and afters. They were truly astounding. So by the time I walked from Bryant Park to my hotel, the book was #1 on the New York Times and stayed there for like 26 weeks.
Well, luckily, we have you the whole hour. So we want people to call in and ask you questions about how you did it and learn how to apply what you've accomplished to their own business. But I have to confess, I ate a really big, bad meal last night, and my face was blown up the size of a basketball this morning. So I'm very embarrassed. I was very embarrassed.
Full of questions for the next hour about your small business. So keep your calls and emails coming. 877-249-9626. You can always email us yourmoney@foxbusiness.com.
I'm doing this because you know what it looks like. That's what I look like this morning. We'll be right back. We'll be right back.
Happy Saturday. We don't have a lot of time left, so you have to call us and get your questions and thoughts in because we have this amazing panel to answer them for you. And it's all about, we were just talking about in the break, perseverance. You believe in your product, you stick with it, and eventually, it could take 20 years.
Hard work.
But eventually.
Danny said it.
It all pays
Dr.
off.
Perricone said it. Hard work.
That's it. It's very simple.
Dr. Perricone was telling his story about he was at a conference and the reps from Nordstrom were there, but it was 20 years. It was 20 years of working on it.
And really believing in your product, man.
Right.
That's. All right. So Sue writes in with an email, which state gives the most profit regarding taxes and assistance for small business funds? Ooh, Danny.
Okay, John and I actually talked about this at break, so we have a list, don't we? Texas, Florida, Nevada, Washington, New Hampshire, and Tennessee.
Is this because they don't have
Wait,
state
say that
tax?
slower and say it again.
Those are zero income tax states.
Zero
which is
state income tax.
Not a bad place to start.
Not a bad place to start, which is Texas, Florida, Nevada, Washington, New Hampshire, Tennessee, and you were going to add...
No, absolutely. And then beyond that, you have special deals you can check in on about who gives, grants and tax concessions and things like that. But starting at 0 is better than starting at 12.
Yeah, and often
which is California and New York. Right. So,
and often the grants actually are not state-based necessarily. So, and there's so many of them growing in the private sector that I don't think that's going to hold you back.
So, if I live in Jersey, I know you want to hop to Spencer, but if I live in Jersey and I'm starting my own business, do you recommend I up and move?
Potentially.
Well, that's what
if you don't like Jersey anyway, then sure.
Well, Tracy hit.
Well, honey.
Come on.
But that was what I wanted to ask Spencer. Spencer, because of the businesses that you've invested in, have you encouraged them to relocate based on the taxes and the benefits of particular states, or do you see people starting businesses in more tax-favorable states these days?
We don't see that much of that, to be quite honest, because the businesses that we back are so reliant upon available management teams that know what they're doing and a support infrastructure. And so that tends to be, quite honestly, even though California is a very expensive place to start businesses and run them, many times we'll fund groups and have them come to Silicon Valley, at least for the first couple of years, because if you want to recruit a management team, they're all readily there. The engineering team's all readily there. That said, there are pockets outside of California that we're actively investing in. It's one of the reasons I'm in Salt Lake right now. We have 2 companies here in Utah. We have a company in Boulder, Colorado. We've funded companies in Arizona and in Washington and Oregon and other places that have much better tax basis than California does, but that's only if the rest of the infrastructure is there, i.e. management team, people that you can recruit, and typically an opportunity for the market as well.
Yeah, Spencer has a great point, which is first, what's most important best for the business, and second, there's no taxes if you don't have any revenue anyway. So first, what's most important for the business, and then second,
but if you have a little web
you can minimize
and you're
it.
Starting it from home, from your computer, it might not be so terrible to.
Why not? Or you could get another home and live there for 6 months and 1 day.
Dr. Perricone, how much time do you spend now that you have this very large business dealing with your tax situation?
Well, that's an endless situation, as a matter of fact, because there are so many things you don't know when you're starting out. For example, you have a large internet business, which the company has, and you have to pay sales tax if you have a nexus in that state. Some states means if you had one of your employees drive through that state, it becomes a nexus. So all of these problems can pop up. And taxes, of course, are, like I said, a continual. You need experts. You need people that really know what they're doing and will understand the business. And as a small business owner and doing it myself and having people find a lot of things will be surprises as you go along. You don't like those kind of surprises.
It's such a hot topic these days, internet taxes and whether or not that's actually going to continue and get worse. And that is something, you know, Dani, we talk about this all the time, selling your product on the web. Well, these people are going to start to get taxed pretty violently if things go forward as they want them to.
Well, thankfully, we have really big companies like Amazon fighting the heck out of this, so we'll see what happens. But absolutely, that could put a really significant damper. Yeah.
I want to get to an email from Andrea, who has written in from Charlottesville, Virginia, just up the road from where I grew up. Andrea, thanks for writing in. Andrea says, I own a vintage limousine company in Charlottesville. How can I learn to use social media, such as Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn, to get the word out about my business in the most cost-effective manner? Dani, you just do it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, Andrea, first of all, what you have to do is just jump in there, create the accounts, and start playing around with the tools. Twitter, Facebook, and MySpace to some degree, and LinkedIn. Those are the general 4 that you would want to have. On your website, you'd want to have little buttons so that people can follow you on any of those 4. You also want to have what's called a badge. So take each of these social networking sites, create a badge, put it on the homepage of your website, and then get out there and start twittering. Now, you can use tools that actually go out and start adding people so that you can create a small base so that other people that use the tools will find you and add you. But really, there's this, in Twitter, you had mentioned that specifically, there's a hashtag where you can use keywords that people search for, and other people in that business or industry will find you based on the hashtag, the £. So that's one way to do it. But really, just start Twittering every few days. You know, I have an auto bot that every couple of weeks sends out a note about something new on my website that just goes out to all of the followers. It takes a while to grow them, like on Twitter and Facebook and so on. But get your family, friends, business partners, invite everybody you know. And the best thing is that you can actually import all of the contacts from Microsoft Outlook, from Hotmail, Webmail, Gmail, etc. And you get a good base of a couple hundred people to start.
And before we hop to commercial, shouldn't she hook herself up with, like, bridal industries and things like that, too? Is there a way to do that?
There's always a way, absolutely. I mean, it's just a matter of where you want to blog, where you know who you want to, where you want to drive people to, and so on, and where you see your future.
Dr. Perricone, how much are you using social media now?
Yeah, that's a good question. We're really just getting started. We never did that before, and now we're looking at all of those aspects of social marketing. It's going to be hugely important in the future.
You can't not. At this point, you can't not be involved.
Absolutely, and Andrea mentioned cost-effective. It's free, so there's not much more cost-effective than that. There are little tools you can get that say tweet this. You can put all over your website. You can check out John's, RutledgeCapital.com, mine, thebabbgroup.com. Check out how we have the little tweet button, so you can click on them and retweet any part of the page. And that goes a long way. Yeah,
I love that we've created a whole new vocabulary too. I just think it's fabulous.
But Andrea's trying to sell something in a town with wheels on it, so she needs local. People are using Twitter for local marketing through a thing called EPONs, where you actually give discount coupons on a Twitter or through the other media that people can come to you and get 20% off. And those people will have local networks of their own that they can ping that onto.
And if you're selling on the web, who cares where they're coming from? Drop ship the thing and get the coupon out to everybody.
Vintage car blogs and websites as well. That's another way.
Brides, vintage limo bride. It just should be all one word. All right, as we go to commercial, we want to give a shout out to our radio listeners on Sirius Channel 145 and XM 168. Thanks for listening.
Coming up, a former guest who made her pitch right here on this very program had a meeting with that venture capitalist. We're going to find out how See Jane Fly, if it took off or, well, if it didn't take off. We're going to talk to Spencer about that meeting. More when we come back. Howdy, everybody. See, I surprised you.
Oh, you did. You did.
Welcome back. This is Your Questions, Your Money. Dr. Nicholas Perricone is our special guest. this hour, and I'm afraid I frightened you, didn't I? I'm sorry.
She's from the South. I'm from Jersey. You'd be frightened all around by the time you're done here. All right.
A little shout out to Minnie Pearl.
I'm going to say talk and coffee. Make you feel right at home. Jersey.
We have a first-time viewer who's written in. So excited.
Esther, a first-time viewer of your program and loving it, she says, my question is how to start all over again without credit due to a bankruptcy. After 10 years of a successful business, I lost it all due in part to the poor economy and my divorce. At the time, I had a terrific job with a six-figure salary, but I really missed the challenge and opportunity of my own business. So she has a job right now, and she wants to start her own business. Can't get a loan, economy, divorce, mess. What does she do?
Start to build it organically, Esther. You know, you've got a full-time job, it sounds like, so stick with the full-time job. Do the side business part-time, like many of us have started ours doing that. Do it part-time, get a tax ID, start building your business's credit by doing simple things like going to the Sprint store and grabbing a cell phone. Part-time work to build up your collateral, and eventually you can get a loan and start with the tax ID of the business to start again.
Spencer, I wanted to reach out to you on this note about starting a business with very little money. And I wanted to hear what you're seeing in terms of the businesses who are coming to you. And are they getting off the ground with very, very, very little money? How are people managing their cost really from the get-go in this economy?
Well, I think they're managing them right now very tightly. They're being really careful with their money. You know, the CJ and Fly group that we're going to talk about in a minute, she's doing it with her own money and her husband's money, friends and family. I think that, you know, you have to be very cautious in your starting. You can't jump in with both feet right now. And the previous email that you just read, if she has a full-time job, depending upon the scope of the business that she's looking at, she may want to look at getting a partner, somebody that has more time than she has, and you know, somebody that has some skills that she doesn't possibly have, and work that way, and have that person do sweat equity, and then she use her job to finance the business at the beginning, you know, and spread yourself out.
Doctor, how did you fund yours in the beginning?
Well, in the beginning, it was once again out of my own income. But I did manage to give a license to a very large corporation once my product was out there, and then use that money to continue operating the business. But there was a time I had a big order. I had to fulfill the order. I actually used my credit card to the manufacturer to get that order in. I had enough time to pay the credit card and do it. But things got better after that.
But yeah, but it happens, right? I mean, John, we see this all the time. People dip into their credit cards.
You gotta,
mom.
You got to want it.
But you got to want it.
If you really want it, you'll do whatever it takes to.
But people always, that's the thing about people dismissing credit cards. Don't dismiss them, because almost every entrepreneur who's created a successful business at one point or another has used that credit card, either to fulfill a shipment or to at least initially start it.
Absolutely. You know, you need to have all the keys on the piano when you're starting a business, and you don't want to not use any, keep everything available to you. But in Dr. Pericone's story, 20 years, he's the real deal. I mean, he really wanted to do this, and he did it. It's the work. And if you can keep your job, stay alive with that money, there's 24 hours in a day. You don't have to sleep as much as people think. And you can start your business in the off hours, build up a little cash. If you have to sell vegetables on the side of the road, you know, do it, put the cash in a box. That's how people build companies. Well, they don't go out and get $2 million at a time.
Right.
They do it the hard way.
We hear people, you know, by email, we get tons of email asking this type of question, and people will say, well, I only made $500 or I only made $1,000 doing that. That's work that equaled money. Put it in a box or put it in a CD or something and hang on to it for a year, and before you know it, you have your startup capital, or at least you have collateral to get the loan. And if you only need 10% collateral, that's a heck of a loan.
Mm-hmm. Let's go to the phone.
We're going to jump to the phone, but just quickly, that's what our pitch guys are doing. They both worked full-time, and on the weekends, they're cleaning tubs.
A process server who has created a pump to clean out your jet tub.
Yep.
You got to love that.
It's awesome. All right, we got David on the phone from Delaware. Hey, David.
Hello.
What's your question?
My question is, I would like to hear your opinion about borrowing money against my 401k and to start my small business. And I do not have currently a job.
Okay, wait, don't hang up.
What's your business?
Can I say the name?
Well, no, you said you're starting a small business.
I would like to start a business, yeah.
What kind of business, sir?
It's a franchise. You want me to give you the name?
Sure.
Sure.
Wins to Go.
So you want to start a franchise, and you want to buy a franchise, and you want to dip into your 401k to fund it.
Correct.
John?
Your opinion.
First question I'd want to ask is how old you are. Because if you're 20 years old and you take money out of a 401k, you've got 9 lifetimes to put it back. And if you're 62 years old, you don't. And so that's one. I'm actually in the middle of writing a book about 401ks at the moment, and the rules are up to your ears. So you need to make sure you're following all the rules, because when you're in jail, it's real hard to start a new business.
They won't throw you in jail for taking money out of your 401k.
Absolutely.
But John's point is that he could be living in a refrigerator box if he empties his retirement account.
Yeah, your 401k is there for a purpose. And if you take it out and you pay taxes and you pay penalties on it, you can end up not getting the cash you think you're going to get to start.
David, here's my question. Because if you take a loan, you won't pay a penalty. If you take a loan out of your 401k and do it right, you won't pay a penalty.
But you have to pay it back.
You do have to pay it back. But you said you are no longer employed.
Correct.
So I don't know what the rules of that plan are if you are no longer employed by that company.
They're not going to let him take a loan.
They might. The issue that raises another issue about what you're allowed to do if your 401k still resides with your former employer, because but then you get into some very tricky rules. You have to contact them about it. Danny, I know you want to get in here.
Usually the rule is you can borrow up to about $50,000 for a variety of reasons without having to go into a hardship loan. So you don't have to show hardship like going into foreclosure. But you have to be employed still by the company that you started the 401k with. So in this particular case, to John's question, when are you going to need the money and how long do you have to pay it back? Because you're not going to be able to borrow against it as a typical loan, like many of us have done. I borrowed against my 401k, but it was when I worked for the company I was able to pay it back. It wasn't as big of a deal. So the thing you want to do is maybe even spend $200 and talk with a tax planner and look at what the implications of this are.
Because if you take that money out of the plan,
don't get this one wrong.
Or if you've rolled it over into an IRA, you're going to pay taxes and a penalty on it, period.
I just hate this conversation, though, in general, like dipping into your retirement money.
But if it's a loan, you're borrowing money from yourself, and you're paying yourself interest. And if you know that you're going to be employed and you're going to have the wiggle room to pay it back, because, again, if you lose your job and you've taken a loan, many plans make you pay that loan back immediately.
Right. And then don't forget, while you're paying the loan back, though, it's that much harder to make regular contributions. So it just just think really, really hard and long about it.
But entrepreneurs, they're going to go and get the money any which way they can. And they see that money sitting there.
There's a reason here on this. Just think long and hard about that.
I don't think it's unreasonable. But again, you got to be employed. You have to be employed with the company to get that loan. We're going to take a quick break. 877-249-9626 is the number. Your money at foxbusiness.com. Live.
Welcome back to Your Questions, Your Money. Happy Saturday. I'm Tracy Burns along with Dagan McDowell.
A few weeks ago at this time, we had on Erica Hill, who pitched her idea for a travel website aimed at women. Take a look.
So the website is called cjanefly.com, and it is for the woman traveler who wants to simplify and enhance her travel experience. So, what sets us apart from the other travel guides and whatnot out there is the fact that more is not better, and generic doesn't always sell to women. And what we wanted to do is solve women's biggest problem, which is too many options, too little time. Today's time-constrained woman who's running around, whether she's a business woman or she's a mother of 2, she's young, she's 22 and just started her own business. She doesn't have time to sift through all kinds of guides out there to find the information that's really relevant to her. So what we wanted to do is introduce a new way to plan her trip from start to finish, and that was just simplifying travel guides and giving them original content, not aggregated content anymore, and bringing back the editorial voice and making it customized to them. So what we offer is free customizable travel guides.
I think that Allegiance Capital would find this compelling enough. We'd be happy to take a meeting. In fact, one of my partners, Pete Bodine, is quite the travel expert, and I would be happy to set up a meeting for you with him.
Well, Erica and Spencer did have that meeting. We were there. Spencer is here. And Erica is having a baby today, so she could not join us. So Spencer,
you couldn't tell how pregnant she was in that video, but man, she was. She was hanging on, and she held on to that baby for a long time.
But Spencer, you took a meeling, so we just want to hear about it. So let's start with the pros of what you heard from Erica.
Well, the pros were, well, let's start with the demographic she's after. Women who travel a lot, who are 25 to 45 years of age, so they have a lot of disposable income, and they don't have a lot of time, and yet they have very discriminating tastes. So our idea is to get some travel experts in each city, roll out city by city, and have them figure out the complexity behind where to stay, what to do, where to eat, etc. And in addition to that, things that men like myself, when we travel, don't think about. For example, I don't think about, is there a cosmetic store close by in case I forget some of my makeup at home? I mean, men are silly enough. We'll shampoo our hair with the soap in the shower, and women need a lot more TLC. And Erica is a very experienced worldwide traveler, and her business came out of personal dissatisfaction. So that, coupled with the demographic she's targeting, made it very attractive. So that's a pro. The other pro thing is that the travel business, online travel agencies and recommendation sites are on at least their third generation. So there's been a lot of ground that's been plowed ahead of time, a lot of things that she can learn from. And the third thing is, this is more anecdotal than anything else, but I had my wife, I had a lot of my friends, my partner Laura, and my assistant and other people in the office all look at the site and look at the positives on it, and came away with very good opinions about what was being offered. I think last time I talked about the simplicity of it, and I didn't want that to sound pejorative. What they've really done is hide the complexity by having these recommendations, truly good recommendations, being put on the site, thereby saving time.
Okay, so what are the cons then? Because I looked at the site too. I'm a single mother, 3 kids. Something like this could come in very handy for me, especially as far as, I'd be the first person to leave my makeup at home because I'm packing for 3 kids. I'd want to know where that cosmetic store is. What, though, are the cons to starting this business right now?
Well, I don't think there's a con to starting the business right now. The cons are, for me as an investor, looking at this business, if she wants that kind of money right away, there are a couple of challenges. Number one, they don't have enough travel DNA in the company. So she and her partner, Eric, are both very smart people with a lot of business chops, but they don't have travel DNA. So one of the things we recommended during the meeting is they increase that by getting a business advisory board. One of our CEOs, for example, was a senior executive with Expedia, and we've offered to put them together and make some other introductions as well. Because, like I said, this is third-generation stuff. This stuff's been plowed before, so there's no reason for her and her partners to make the mistakes that others have made in this business. And so she needs some of that. The other challenges are, one of the reasons, Tracy, as you talked about being a single mom, you trust this site because those experts are recommending things that they themselves have experienced. The challenge is, can she stay true to that part, true to the gospel message, as it were, and still make money? I'll give you an example. Right now in the hotel industry, they are very much coveting the relationship that airlines are now getting with consumers. In other words, they're cutting out the online travel agencies, or what we refer to as OTAs. They would like to have that same kind of relationship. A site like this that recommends, this particular demographic to come on board. You could see Starwood or Marriott or other, hotels coming in and saying, hey, listen, we'll pay a lot for those recommendations and a lot for those referrals. The challenge would be, Tracy, if you wanted to go to Boston or some other city, and one of these large hotel chains would not necessarily be the one that her experts would recommend, and yet they're offering a lot of money to the company to be the top recommendation across the board. And that's where one of the challenges is. She's got some good ideas for getting around that, but I think she needs to roll out 2 or 3, maybe 4 more cities and verify and validate that model that it can be done.
Spencer, what was your advice to her? Because you didn't send her away with money in her bag.
That's true. Our advice was to go raise some angel funding. And in fact, more than that, I've already introduced her to a couple of people, and will introduce her to some more people that would be, possibly interested in investing in a business like this. She should raise, between $500,000 and maybe $700,000, and go roll out another half dozen cities, and build that demographic, and build that business case, and then she can come back for institutional money. We certainly didn't give her the hard no. She's a delightful person, very bright. We think that if she puts the right team around her, she has an opportunity. And so that would be our recommendation to her. We'll actually give her some assistance along those lines, and then maybe she can come back and see us again, a year from now, and she can show, hey, see, Spencer, I told you so. I could, I could stay true to my original premise and make money.
I think before we actually have a statement from Erica, but I think before we move on to that, Spencer, you're hitting on really what's happening here, and it's relationship development, and it's people meeting, and even if you don't get from one meeting or a series of meetings what you're really looking for, it's just one step on the road. It's one step towards success. And again, the more people you meet, the more people you know, particularly in Silicon Valley and in the world of venture capital, it is all about relationship building. Shoot, it's like that in the rest of the world.
Heck yeah. Everybody comes in and out of your life for a reason. I
should be clear on a couple of things, though. Erica is an open-minded, listening type of founding CEO. If she had come in with a different attitude, we wouldn't have been saying, hey, gee, let's help you out. Let's introduce you to some of our friends that invest in these kinds of businesses. Because honestly, if she's successful, we would love to have her come back into our door with that bright, shiny smile again, and take a look at her business. And we'd like to have that opportunity. So she projected and presented herself very well, and her team.
And on that note, Erica Dublin, the founder and CEO of CJ & Fly, because she's having a baby today. Here's what Erica said. The face-to-face with Allegia's was very informative, inspiring, and gave the CJ & Fly team clear direction on what we should focus on for the next 6 months. Spencer and Pete were very insightful, and I'm looking forward to staying in touch with them as CJ & Fly continues to mature. So, Spencer, this was terrific, and also a big shout-out to Erica, because she's having a baby today. She's giving birth. Yeah. She just gave birth to a company, and now she's having a child. But to your
point about the relationships, I mean, Spencer is helping her. If nothing else, and Spencer never talks to her again, she's got someone from the travel agent now on the board with her. And that, to me, is worth this entire thing altogether.
But it's also, Spencer hit on this, how important it is to present yourself well, and how it's important to be a listener, and how presentation really makes a huge difference. The way you look, the way you appear, of course, Dr. Perricone.
Even when you're 9 months pregnant.
Even when you're 9 months pregnant. Spencer, thank you so much.
And we're not confused. Okay, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Well, finish your thought.
I just said we're not confused about the value of that either.
Right.
This relationship works both directions. And we didn't want to send somebody as talented as her away with a bad taste in her mouth about venture capitalists or about Allegia's capital. She has a wide and broad network as well, and other people talk to people. Hey, who would you like to raise money from? Who actually helps you out, even though they're not putting money in your company right now. So we're not confused about where the value is as well.
That's a great point.
I think that applies to anybody doing business, whether you're looking to raise money or not. But keep those questions coming.
Burn your bridges.
We're just going to take a quick break, and we'll have more of your questions and answers to them when we come back.
Left, you better get on the phone, because our phenomenal panel is here to help you get your entrepreneurial butt off the couch.
Are you inspired?
Making money.
I'm inspired.
That was so cool. I keep saying, she sat down at the boardroom table. If nothing else ever happens to her, she could die happy. That is cool. That doesn't happen to a lot of people.
That's right.
All right, we got Brian calling in from Louisiana. Hey, Brian.
Hey, how you doing?
How are you?
Good. I'm originally from New Jersey. I had a large painting contractor business up there. And I have an idea for painting pants or contractor's pants that I never saw before in the 38 years I was in business. And I want to know how I could approach a large pant manufacturer without getting ripped off and protect my idea and get paid for it.
So you want to make pants for painters?
He has a design for pants.
The design I want to, sell to a pant manufacturer.
This is
well
tough, Dani. Is it safe to say tough?
Well, I'm going through a provisional patent process right now, and it's changed since about 2 years ago when I did it last. And here's what you'll need to do. As you go through the process of designing your pant, write down every single thing, I would say screw, but that's what is in my product. Write down every single zipper or every piece of fabric, what it's made of, where you got it. You have to detail out so that anybody reading your provisional patent request, anybody reading it could recreate the product from your exact description, all the way down to how many stitches there were in the side of the pant leg and everything. So you start to detail this out as you build a prototype. Then you can send in your request for a provisional patent, becomes patent pending. And then you can shop this around with patent pending and a non-disclosure agreement to people and be pretty darn secure and safe in doing it.
Can you patent pants? Can you patent?
You can patent a design. If it's a specific design for a specific use, then it becomes either a use patent or a design patent, probably both, which would run you about $400 for both of them. And yes, you absolutely can.
Doctor, how'd you get your product out there? You said you went out there and they said no for a lot of years.
Well, first of all, I did have patents and a lot of intellectual property. In fact, there's about 60 U.S. patents and hundreds of related foreign patents. But the point is, this is a little difficult in the situation of this individual. With patents, I have both use patents and also patents that are very specific. And then you have proprietary information. What he has to do is he has to reveal his particular idea. And it's going to be sometimes difficult to protect. Plus, as most large corporations don't even want to see you because they may already have this idea sitting in the files, and you come in and then there's a big dispute. So it is a difficult position, but IP is the way to protect yourself before you go in.
John has said that repeatedly, that's what makes it, not to discourage him at all, but it makes it difficult if you're not going to figure out how to manufacture the pant by yourself. It's hard to connect very often with larger corporations because they don't want to talk to you.
Well, yeah, they don't want to expose themselves to the liability of a lawsuit later. But, I would get what intellectual property protection I can, as Dani says. But I think the key to this product is to be finding a way to bring this thing to the market. And painters' pants are very likely brought to the market by specialty retailers. And you're going to have to get to them to get it in a product line to bring out to the customers. That's going to be the trick. And they're not in the business usually of paying for an idea. And so that's not the way they normally operate. Right, so it's a tricky situation. You of course can start your own pant company and go out and get them manufactured and sell them on the internet.
But Bonobo, we had the guys on from Bonobo.
That's right.
They were at Stanford Business School, and one of the guys started making his own pants because in his apartment because he could never find pants to fit. Then he started selling them to his friends, and he just happened again. And this is something Spencer always talks about: pairing up with someone who has skills that you don't have.
Right.
And his buddy in business school said, "I can do something with this." So it literally was that simple. One person making pants on a sewing machine.
Yep. Yep.
And then I think, right, you just hand them out and start giving them to painters to wear. You get the buzz going that these are great pants.
Quick break. And Monday, we want to tell you about this. All the president's czars. And look at the unusual move by the White House to name over 30 czars. That it starts at 4 p.m. on Bulls and Bears. Check it out. Don't move a muscle.
All right, we don't have a lot of time left. We're going to jump right to your emails. Tom writes that most small business owners I've talked to are complaining that there's nothing in the federal stimulus plan for them. But wait. Cash flow is still the big problem I'm hearing about from small businesses. Where can a small business go to find help? Well, before we hop to Danny and John, right, there's just word out that maybe, just maybe, some of the stimulus money will go to small businesses. After all, it's just talk right now, but...
And the big story is TARP. It's the TARP money.
It's the TARP money,
it's
right.
Taking
so
the leftover...
From the $700 billion.
It's I think it's $170 billion left. A good chunk of that, Rich Eisen can tell us, a big chunk of that is what's been paid back by some of the banks. They're talking about how can the administration redirect that to small businesses. But Danny, why wait?
Yeah, well, first of all, check out NASBIC. It's NASBIC.org. This is the National Association of Small Business Investment Companies. It's a new resource that I've been finding. It kind of is an accumulation of multiple different companies that are loaning to small businesses today. But here's some general places you can go. Club eFactory. You can go to the Club E Network. You can go to entrepreneur.com. They have an entire section on their website about getting unique ways to get money in today's market. I read one this morning about 15 unique and creative ways to get money. And then one that I like a lot is the gobignetwork.com, which is to take your smaller business a little bit bigger. And one of the big topics there is money.
I want to just update those numbers. It's $127 billion left of TARP, $70 billion in money that's already been invested and then returned.
Of course, they haven't worked out, though, how they're going to give it out and nothing.
Still in flux.
It's just a thought. And
still in flux.
Back of a napkin, somebody wrote at a bar.
But would you take money? Because, again, what about getting involved in the government, getting involved with the government?
The stuff Danny's talking about isn't complicated TARP loans where then they hang you out to dry afterwards. It's just it's a simple loan with a document you can pay back. I just worry that you can't get it.
Right.
You know, there's $140 billion less loans to small businesses today than there were last October on the books. So it's tough to get money. So get it if you can, but also get it from your own life. I think being your own bank is the way to survive right now. And you be your own bank by turning assets you've got into cash. You got a used car, you got something in the closet, you got an old computer, you got eBay stuff you can do, set up a Kool-Aid stand, earn your own money. I think people are having to scratch for themselves very hard right now while they're waiting for all this great talk out of Washington to show up on their doorstep.
Spencer, some final thoughts real quickly.
I would love to see them, instead of worry about whether they hand out TARP money to small businesses, I'd love to see them suspend the payroll tax for 6 months.
Absolutely.
Amen, Spencer.
I think we can give you a hallelujah on that one. Hallelujah.
I mean, that would give them instant cash and you know, the ability to afford more employees.
Dr. Perricone, any final words of advice for people starting out?
Yeah, I think really the whole idea is you have a vision, and that's your goal, and just stay focused. I mean, there are obstacles will come in, but just remember that's your vision. Stay with it. You have to do oversight. There'll be a lot of people involved as you grow, and you're the one that has to make sure you stay on the message and stay with that vision.
But how did you stay with it for 20 years? How come you didn't throw in the towel?
I don't know the answer, except I really believe that what I was doing was more than just a cosmetic business or cosmeceutical business. This is about people's health, and if we don't start going to preventive medicine in this country, the healthcare system is going to fail. There are many things I'm working on, and the interesting thing is, we use vanity as leverage to get people to do the right thing. If I say, eat in a certain way to reduce your risk of breast cancer, heart disease, but if I can say, eat this way, you have beautiful skin, that's the leverage you need.
You look younger.
And it works.
How is business? We didn't even ask you in the last.
Actually, business is going extremely well, especially direct business like internet, and then, of course, using QVC and other methods. Really very good. When people come to hard times, they want to take better care of themselves, they want to eat the right diet, they want to look good, because they need to get over this crisis, and the crisis will continue. So you have to be healthy, you have to have the right attitude. When you eat correctly, you don't just look better, it elevates your mood, it allows you to overcome obstacles. And once again, if you do the right thing, everything else falls into place. Decreased risk of cancer, heart disease, diabetes, all the long list, but you're doing it to look good, and that's what's going to keep you going.
But you're in turn, inevitably going to potentially save our system, and maybe then DC will go away.
He said obstacles. That's what this show is about. Overcoming obstacles. So you can tune in to us every Saturday. We're here for you, and we cannot thank our panel enough for joining us this hour. Dr. Nicholas Perricone, Spencer Tall with the Legis Capital, and, of course, Dani Babb and John Rutledge. That is all the time we have. Did you have fun, girl?
I always have fun.
Tracy Burns?
Always have fun.
Tracy and I are here for you
good information
every Saturday, and don't miss a minute of Fox Business starting Monday, early in the a.m.